Hey everybody, great to see you here again. Thanks for stopping in at the Red Barn, where if you're new to the channel, I spend most of my time working on a handful of hot-rodded Porsche 914s, including the LS3 powered 914 here behind me, and the focus of this episode, the Ferrari 360 swapped 914. So let's see what kind of progress I can make on that this week. And it's a beautiful time of year, kind of springtime, and those of you that have been here before know what that means. It's kitty season. And yes, my wife is heavily involved with a cat rescue here in Petaluma, and if you stay till the end, you will get to meet the latest couple fosters that we've got. Enjoy. So I got a number of comments about the size of the cables that I'm using for this, as well as the grounding strategy that I've decided to go with. And let me take you through why I'm doing what I'm doing. One, the most important is Haltech specifies 1 AWG direct-to-battery connections for the R5 ECU, which is what I'm running, as you know. And it comes from the factory with these Radlock type connectors, and these are only available in the size that fits, and they take a number 1 AWG wire, so you're kind of stuck with that. And since, as my wife will tell you, I'm a good little rule follower, I'm going to do what Haltech says. But the other thing people, I think, oftentimes forget is this is not just an ECU, it's also the power management unit, or a power management unit. So here's a couple of wiring diagrams that just show all this stuff. First, there's the one that says this is what Haltech specs for cable size and connection to battery. But then here is a page out of the wiring diagram, which is for these three connectors. This one is the 4 connector, and these are one each of 25 amp output. And then 12 of these wires are 8 amp outputs, and so there's a power management unit inside here as well. Forgetting that I have a separate power management unit that's going to power some other stuff, because I got to run the whole car off of both of those units. But that's the deal. Haltech specified it. I'm going to do what Haltech says. So you can see they're very explicit about 1 AWG direct to battery for those main connectors. But then when you see that secondary wiring diagram where it shows the power management unit, you can see there's 4 25 amp outputs. And in my case, what's that going to? But, you know, you can imagine when the water pump turns on, that's a big current inrush, and they want to make sure that nothing in the wiring system is going to cause a voltage drop that could impact the signal that's going to the engine. Some of those signals are very sensitive. You can look back on some of the other videos that I've done where I get into a little bit more detail about that. But these big wires are what the vendor says they want, and I am going to give them what they want when it comes to the electrical system in this car. So, and then the grounding strategy, one of the comments was, you know, you could just go from your battery to a big old, you know, chunk of something welded to the chassis, and that can be the grounding point for everything. And it's not that that wouldn't work. It potentially would work, or it would work. But I'm just going to take the most conservative approach when it comes to all this electrical stuff, just because I feel better about doing it that way. The other reason I'm going to follow their rules is I'm going to need their support when it comes to trying to make this thing run from a tuning perspective, and at least, you know, getting it to start the first time. And the last thing I want to do is have them say, well, what did you do, you know, for this? And me say, well, I didn't follow your rules. I don't want anything that that could be interpreted as something that, oh, that's the reason it's not working. I want to follow all the rules so that I can get the best possible support from Haltech. And not that I don't expect great support from them. They've been awesome so far. But anyway, that's what's going on with the cable sizing and the grounding strategy. And so now let's get back to more of this fun stuff. All right, now to figure out top dead center. And I had looked at a few different ways of doing this, and one of them was, you know, get the degree wheel, but then I realized there's no way to turn the motor over if you got the degree wheel on here. I 3D printed up this little holder, and then, of course, completely overlooked the fact that I couldn't get something on here. And then I went and took the trouble of making a piston stop. And this is a method where you thread this down into the cylinder. You move the piston off a top dead center, push this down so it's going to interfere. It's literally a piston stop. And then you carefully rotate the motor in one direction until the piston contacts it. But this is where you need the degree wheel, because what you would do is you would mark where in that direction that you're turning the motor, it first contacts the piston stop, and record that degree, and then you rotate it the other direction until it comes around and hits the piston again gently, and mark that, and then you know that exactly between those two measurements is absolute positive top dead center. And so that's one way to do it. The other way is what I decided to try, which is I bent up a little steel bracket that mounts to, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see that, it mounts to the head, or the valve cover, and then it holds this dial indicator on there. And I've already worked out where where top dead center is, and that's what you're seeing here, is it's zeroed. But I'll show you how I do it. So what happens is I'm gonna go ahead and turn the motor clockwise, and if you watch the dial indicator, what you'll see is it should start to drop, and right as soon as I moved off of there, it starts to drop. I'll go a little bit farther just to make it obvious. And so when you're working out where top dead center really is, if I come back the other direction, I know I'm approaching TDC, and when it gets right to the zero, it's gonna start to drop. And you can barely see that it just started to drop. So there is an element of piston dwell, they call it. Oof, there it is right there. That's top dead center, or as close as I can get it with this method. But what happens is, as the piston's coming to top dead center and the crankshaft is rotating, there's a point at which it's between, you know, the rod being on this side and the rod being on this side, where the piston's in the exact same position. So there's a space, there's a little bit of degreeness, if you will, where the crank's moving, but the piston's not moving. And so that's what you try to work out as carefully as you can. But this is now, I'm calling this top dead center. And the good news is it lines up with, there's a, I don't know if it's gonna come through, but there's a notch right here in the cam, in this cam drive gear. And there's a little mark on the valve cover right here. And those aren't 100% exactly aligned, but what I'm after is, because you can see, these are adjustable, right? These are slotted. So this is how they get the cams degreed. These are all slotted. So you can't 100% rely on this, but it's in range. And then if I grab a light, I can take you around the back of the motor and show you the other important measure to make sure you're in the right spot. And that is, it's gonna be hard to see. I don't know if it's gonna come through at all, but there are marks on the camshafts, and there are marks in the cap for each of those cams. And I can see that those marks are aligned with those notches. So I know that I'm in the right place in terms of, like, I'm on the compression stroke, and that's top dead center. So now the challenge becomes, I can't see any of this with it's in the car, and this would have a belt cover on it, which obviously I've removed those belt covers. And so I'm gonna go ahead and mark a bunch of different things. I'm gonna mark, well, that notch is not really ideal, but what I can do is I can use a paint pen, and I can mark right where those two things, right where these cam gears, when that mark is, you know, the same spot on both of those cam gears, I know that's top dead center. I'll probably put a mark at the traditional spot. Now notice, there's no case split, so I gotta make something if I'm gonna use this. I gotta make a pointer, but I will mark something on the top of the pulley. But then, as I mentioned in an earlier episode, because I think I can get to see the underside of this, I think I'm gonna mark something on the bottom as well. And I can always add a pointer that says this is where it's lined up. So that part I can make up later. But what may happen, as I mentioned now, is I went ahead and just to prep everything, it's not that the motor's been turning over fine and everything, we bore scoped it and all that good stuff, but just as an extra protection, I got some cylinder fogging spray, and you squirt this down the spark plug holes. All the spark plugs are out right now, so there's no compression that I'm fighting when I'm spinning this motor over. But I've basically pre-oiled the cylinder walls. And then if you caught this thing, I went ahead and invested in a pre-oiling system. And what happens here is you put a number of quarts of oil into this tank, pressurize it, and then I've got the appropriate fittings, and you feed an air line into it, and that pre-pressure or that pressurized oil, the fitting that I'm going to use, this is the oil pressure sensor, and this is the oil filter, obviously. Wow. But I can put that fitting right in here and turn the air on, and I can pre-pressurize my entire oiling system, because again, this motor hasn't run in a number of years. And so rather than spin it on potentially dry anything, this oiling system will pre-pressurize it. And that means I can pre-pressurize it, I fog the cylinders, and if I just go ahead and put the engine harness on here with the ECU, I can spin this engine with a timing light on it, and I can verify that crank trigger offset. So I think that's probably what I'm going to do, is do all this work outside of the car. So let me get going on that. And there I've marked top dead center on the cam drive gears, and I haven't made a pointer. Obviously I got to make a pointer and then make it so I can repeat the pointer in terms of where it bolts on the motor or something, so it can pick up one of these points. And then I also mark some stuff down at the bottom in case I ever need to see something in the car. I'll have to make up a pointer that knows where that lives that I can put on and remove. But now I've got everything marked to try this timing light approach to getting top dead center, or to get that crank trigger offset value. Nothing like a little pressure. Aha! Okay, so clean out the tank first, which I did. Put a number of quarts of oil in it, which I did. Pressurize it, which I did, up to about 30 psi. Then I opened this valve up, and I just used the breaker bar to spin the engine over, and if you look, I don't know if that's coming through, but that's an oil drain hole for the cam, and if I put my finger in there, that has got fresh oil coming out, as does that one. So this motor has been pressurized with oil. So I think it worked. So I'm going to give it a go to just spin it with the starter. Wah, let's see what happens. Nothing else is hooked up. I'm just going to spin it with the starter. Spark plugs are out, just because I kind of can't help myself. Okay, here we go. I have a little bit more oil back in the tank. Valve's not open yet. Got a remote battery hooked up, got the starter cable hooked up, got it grounded to everything, and I made up a little starter wire that I'm just going to hit to positive, and we shall see what happens. So I'm going to give it a little bit of oil, and that is the first sign of life from this car, or this engine, in many years. So that's pretty freaking exciting, if you ask me. Yep, and there's oil where there's supposed to be oil. So I'm calling that a success, and I think I'm ready to now get the ECU and the engine harness over here. But there's no way to get a regular timing light on a coil-on plug setup. So what I've got coming is a little extension that runs down to the plug and sits out here with the regular high tension lead that you can get a standard timing light on. And so once that's here, I'm ready to try to figure out this trigger wheel offset value. And that's the only thing I need to do. Once I get that nailed down, the motor can go back in for the last time, for sure. But that thing has spun on its own for the first time in, as near as I can tell, probably like 10 years. And everything sounded great. So yay, one step closer, major big step closer. And this little high tension lead came in today, this extension that will allow me to get the, get the timing light put around that section of the wire right there once everything's hooked up. and so I can get a signal, and I'll just be firing it right here. And when these lines line up, and I start playing with that value in the software until the timing light is nailing that when those two things are pointed at each other to indicate top dead center, and I will have the data I need to put this thing back together. Oh, the other big news is, you may be wondering why the intake manifold has never been put on this car, and it's because, I've said it before, but let me just remind you, the quick jacks do not get this car high enough to get, with the engine on the jack contraption, the quick jack doesn't get it high enough to clear the whole intake manifold or the air oil separator. So I have decided to pull the trigger on a new lift, and everybody's like, oh, you should get a 2-post lift. I do not want a 2-post lift. I shouldn't say that. I would love a 2-post lift, but I do not want to lose the clear spanness of this shop. So I think I'm going to end up with a mid-rise, like a bend pack. I forget what model number it is, but it's not, I don't want to dig into my floor, and I don't want to have a permanent location for the lift, but it'll get the thing like 40 inches off the ground, which means the engine can go in and out. So probably that is going to get ordered, and then I will be able to put the whole intake manifold together. I have to get this thing refinished, and I'm still trying to figure out where to do that. So still some stuff to work on. And I was hoping that this car might be started on the 100th episode. So my choices are take a lot more time to get the 100th episode out, this being episode 99, or I just forego that and keep showing you guys what progress I'm making, and it runs when it runs, which is probably what I'll do. Anyway, so I'm going to call it for this episode and say thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, tell all your friends, and we'll talk to you all again real soon. Oh, if you're interested in the kitties, they're coming right up. So everybody take care. See you soon. Bye-bye. So my wife is already in here with them.
Hello there.
Yep. Now, these guys were bottle babies, and they're about 5-6 weeks old, as near as we can tell. We did not do the bottle babiness with them. That is
We're too old for that.
That is an every couple 3 hours thing where you've got to get up in the middle of the night and feed them, and we don't have it in us to do that. So these were raised by one of the other folks involved with Morty's cat rescue. And so this is Knickers. Knickers is a little boy, and that right there is Bloomers. So it's Knickers and Bloomers, boys and girls. And like I said, 5-6 weeks old, and they're doing great. They're super friendly. They just woke up, and they're just getting going. So you can see he's starting to play. And he's a mouthy little thing, as it turns out. So he needs to be given toys to play with, so he doesn't become, too mouthy. A biter. Yeah, it doesn't become a biter. But here you can see now they're getting going. And they love to curl up on the laps and run around to be maniacs and all that great stuff. So, as always, this is they're here for socialization, and until they're about a little over 2 pounds or so, and then they head off to the spay and neuter clinic and come back here and recover, and then they're off to Morty's to find their forever homes. So, look at this little guy. Look at that face. Oh my God. Look at him. Oh, he is darn cute.
Knickers.
And
come here, little one.
Bloomers, and right, she is just as cute. Look at this one. Hi. Oh my goodness.
She's weighing in at 1.24 pounds. And look at him, he's eating.
He's a hungry boy.
And at this point, they're still getting wet food mixed in with a little bit of milk formula. Yeah.
And like I said, since they were bottle babies, we don't know the whole backstory, but I think they were brought in by somebody that found them abandoned. And so they get tested, and they get their shots and all the things that they need to make sure that they're in good shape. And like I say, they're here with us for probably another month or so.
I don't know if they will go to the June 28th span neuter or July 12th.
Okay, so
if they weigh enough, they'll go in June.
Yeah, but they're here for like another month at least. So anyway, there you go. It's Knickers and Bloomers. So thanks for watching, and as always, support your local cat rescue, dog rescue, animal rescue, and we'll talk to you all again real soon. Bye-bye.